after he walked out the door, I started thinking to myself, something's not right, man. He's getting ready to go take someone else's life. I rounded the corner and the door. I looked in and our eyes met. As soon as they met, that was it.
Broken home, broken dreams. Gave my mind to these millions and my heart to the game. Probably die up in these streets, but I survived through my name.
Welcome back to the Broken Home Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Tonight, this interview's been in the making for a minute now, but we've got my friend. How you doing tonight, Big Weavy?
Good, man. Good. Glad to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. For all the viewers, why don't you tell us where you're from and where you grew up?
I was born and raised in Beckley, West Virginia, in southern West Virginia. That's where I was born and raised till I was 18.
You come from a large family too?
I come from a very big family, but in the 80s when divorce started becoming a big thing, my family started to disperse a lot.
Oh, I see. So did your parents end up splitting up then?
My dad left when I was a year old.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that over? Was it just times up between him and your mom?
I don't think he was a very good. Well, okay, we'll start off here. He didn't want to work. My mom was 16. She was young, dumb, and same thing. He was 4 years older than her, so a little bit more mature. But he had a kid when he was 15. You know what I'm saying? So he was just doing what teenage dudes do. You know what I mean? And that's about it. He abandoned us when my brother was 3 and I was a year old.
What was your relationship with your father like? Did you guys end up developing a relationship later on in life? Did he stick around in your life? How did that work?
My childhood was full of broken promises, right? Basically, waiting on the step on a Friday evening and nobody ever showing up, and maybe once a year, and then when it did, it wasn't bad. It wasn't very good, or he was broke, and this guy was a master electrician, man. You know what I mean? He should be making money left and right, but he was always dodging child support. Back then, child support, it took a couple years for him to catch up with you. And he was always running from child support. And child support, he only had to pay $50 a piece per child. And that's for two of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and he ran from that. But usually it was because the cost had done built up. So, well, at that time, I guess a few $100 was a lot more than what it is today. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's one of those things, man. But he was constantly running from child support, raising another son that wasn't his, who he raised to adulthood.
And what was your relationship with your brother like when you guys were younger?
We were two normal brothers, man. Except for he was kind of like the golden child. My mom was the baby of her family out of 8 kids, so he was the first one born. So he was the baby's baby until I was the baby's baby. But still, yeah, he still had that special place. Plus, he excelled in stuff more than I did. Sports, he was he was a sponsored skater. He was rode motocross. He was in gifted classes, all that stuff. But day to day basis, we played together for a while and we'd fight, and then he'd take off with his friends and I'd take off with mine. So, normal thing.
Yeah, typical brother.
I had a great childhood, bro. I had a great childhood.
Like, what was your typical days like then back then? Because this was before cell phones were in everybody's pocket. Yes. Not everybody had the babysitter iPad. What was your day like back then?
A typical summer day would be getting up, all the kids rounding up around 10:30 in the morning, and I lived in a neighborhood full of kids. So, but we also lived on top of a mountain. This was a normal town, but it was on top of a mountain. But we would hit the valleys and the creeks and this and that and build dams, bridges, stuff like that. Stuff that was really cool that I wish kids now would do nowadays. Play basketball a lot. We had 2 courts on our street, one of them a full size court. So it was we did a lot of stuff like that, man. I was the first person probably, I would say, within a 50-mile radius to own a Nintendo. You know what I mean? The very first, I had to get put on a waiting list for one.
What was high school like for you? When did you start getting yourself into trouble at an early age, like when you got into high school, or what was that scene like for you?
I'll have to go to this, man. I have to revert a little bit. So my whole life, I've had this thing on my mind. I enjoyed criminal activity. You know, even when I was 10, 11, 12, when I was 13, I was running a theft ring amongst kids that were 8, 9, 10. They were my goons, right? And they would break into cars. I was taught them how to break into cars, this and that. You know what I mean? I was a thief. I had always had that mentality, man. When we would drive by a bank, I don't care if I was 6, 4, 8, 10, whatever. I would always look at that bank and say, how can I rob it? How could I get in there? That was always my thoughts. But I didn't get in any trouble. My mom did give us a lot of I was a latchkey kid, man. She had to work so much that when my grandmother wasn't watching us, we were alone and we could do what we wanted. We got away with a lot because we were slick enough to, but it's not because we were good kids, but
Yeah.
we were slick enough to get away with stuff. No trouble till I got in my later teens, and that was basically for stealing car audio equipment because I had got into that.
Where do you think those thoughts came from, Weavy, where you're automatically drawn to like the criminal side of doing things? At first, my first thought was maybe something kind of maybe glamorized it in a movie or something. Like I could see myself watching the movie Heat and wanting to rob a bank. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, if you're having these thoughts like at that young of an age, like, what do you think? Where do you think something like that comes from?
I don't know, man. We don't know everything about our DNA and everything yet, but
yeah,
there was a lot of criminals, man. I went, way back as far as ancestry.com and this and that. My family's either been war heroes, fighters, or thieves or criminals. Maybe it's in my DNA.
yeah.
I love the Dukes of Hazzard. That might, I don't know. I like it, but me and my brother, I always watch those action movies, even at a young age. But who knows, man? It's just always been there.
For someone to have thoughts like that at such a young age and to really not get in very much trouble until later, like it's impressive.
Yeah, really, well, more or less got caught.
Yeah,
what I mean?
It ain't a crime if you don't got caught. Yeah.
But I really actually started in the criminal activity about 12, right? And most of us started off in the breaking into the old neighbor's houses when they were gone, and we wouldn't do them any damage or nothing. You know what I mean? We might take some little like we might take just kid stuff, nothing that we would nothing crazy. We weren't lugging out TVs or nothing.
Yeah.
But then when I did go at about the age of 15, 16, when I started going wild with that kind of stuff.
And did you draw attention to yourself through it? Like, were you just crazy?
Yeah, it was wide open, bro. Basically, man, I was taking one guy's Alpine head unit from one guy's car and taking it, a town over and selling it to the next guy or whatever else. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Recklessness. As a matter of fact, the chief of police in Beckley, which is a big department, it's not for here. It's a very big department. We were really good friends in high school, and me and him, that's where I got my first charges. Me and him got caught taking a set of subwoofers out of behind the seat of a truck.
He knew your racket then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but he was the same age as me at the time. He was just a young kid in a boring town, and that's what we done. So
what is the population roughly? Like, just did we get a better idea?
That I grew up in.
Yeah.
It wasn't over 1,500, 2,000.
Okay.
Actual town I grew up in. Now you go up the road, populations, 40-some, 50-some thousand. So still not a big town either way.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going through high school, and what's your relationship with your brother like while you're in high school?
When we got up into our teenage years, he had done quit school by the time I had ever finished middle school. You know, there's a 3 year difference. Him older than me. He had gotten into substances, just hanging with the wrong crowds. Really, is what got him started. He really he longed for that father figure, which I didn't. I never longed. I never wanted it. I didn't care. You know, my mom was plenty enough for me, man. I needed a father figure, but I
Yeah.
didn't know at the time. But you know, he just really always wanted that.
How did that affect him, do you think?
I think that played part of what had to come in his life a lot. He would go stay with my dad because my dad, you know, was more like a friend. He would let him kind of hang out and party with him and stuff. You know what I mean? And this and that. And that wasn't happening at my mom's house, nothing like that. So it wasn't a good influence even when he got to him. You know what I mean? So it was I think either which way the whole situation would have been better off if he would have never knew the guy.
Did you ever develop a relationship with your father even later on in life?
Fortunately and unfortunately, at the age of 40 years old, I ended up landing an apartment dead beside of him.
Was that just by fluke, or
That's
was
by
that
fluke,
planned?
brother. That's by fluke.
Wow.
What the hell?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
how the universe placed me, man. And guess I'm the one that gets to take care of him every time he falls. He's never picked me up one time in my life.
That's an important statement, a powerful statement, even, like, despite what he did to you basically by pretty much abandoning you, you're coming into his life at his later stages and you're taking care of him now. It's kind of like poetic justice in a way, or something like that. Like,
Yeah, it's along those lines. I thought, you know, I really have struggled with it in my head a lot. It's but there's something in my heart that won't let me not do it. You know what I mean? It's such an odd situation to end up in.
Yeah.
Whoever would, I never would have thought. I mean, now you know we've had a relationship my whole life, but it was a sparse one. I mean, a weekend a year, one maybe 2 weekends separated a year, you know, so never more than 2 or 3 days together at a time. And that may have been 15, 16 times, 17 times.
over the course of your whole life.
Yes.
And unknowingly to you, you move in and you're next door to him. So when's the moment at, like, what happened when you realize you recognize him, you go out and get the paper and he's out on the stoop or something?
I kind of knew which apartment he lived in, right? But as I meet the landlady up here to sign paperwork, and I knew he lived in this specific unit, right? This group, this building, right? And I said, which one's mine, right? Is it somewhere down that way? Because I was hoping it was, right? And she said, no, it's right there. And I said, oh, okay. Well, and I looked, and it's right beside my father's house. Right beside her. I mean, if I went over and put my fist through the wall, it would be in his house.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, definitely. It was a weird turn of events. But I think in the grander scheme of things, man, the universe it planned it out this way somehow or
another. Yeah, I don't want to ask too personal a question, but I mean, has he tried to make any kind of amends, or is he at the very least been appreciative for what you're doing now?
He's been okay. He's definitely not been financially whatsoever. But you know, as far as you know, which it's a different thing when you get older. But he tries to he's tried to be cool, you know. But his way of trying to be cool is just wanting to sit and smoke a little bit of weed with me or something, this and that. But not really, you know. You can tell it really eats at him. You can tell it does. But he's also a prideful person, so it doesn't help at all. You know what I mean? If he would drop some of that pride, maybe we could get a little further. But it's I put it to you this way: I've done more for him altogether, emotionally, physically, whatever it may be, since I've lived up here than he's done for me. Yet again, you know what I mean? So it doesn't. It'll be the same till one of us takes the dirt nap. You know what I mean?
When you were growing up, did you find that your brothers and your relationship was extremely tight because you guys didn't have that father figure, or did you try to find that father figure for yourself?
I had a lot of different. Me and him both had we had a lot of different friends like from school, and we spent a lot of time at different people's houses, and most of those people had fathers. So I think we both went our own way, found our own kind of father figures. You know what I mean? This and that. Which it wasn't my whole life that I didn't have a father figure. My mom, she remarried when I was 12, but the guy she remarried was 10 years younger than her, 10 years older than me. So that's kind of a funny dynamic too, right?
Yeah.
But he had been a Marine, and he worked. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't on drugs or alcohol or nothing like that. Until she passed away, that's when I did not like him. After that, up till then, I thought he was just one of the most wonderful men I'd ever met in my life.
Sounds
But
like a positive figure too.
yeah, he was a real positive figure, man. I wouldn't know how to change brakes, do anything like that. Any of the man stuff, I would have figured it out. But there's a lot of stuff I would not know how to do had he not been there.
You mentioned your mother passed away. How long ago was that?
That was 12 years this past September.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it, bro.
Thank you, man.
And how did that affect you when that originally happened?
Oh, that was the worst. That was the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life, man. Even we haven't got to my brother yet, but she had a lung removed 10 years or 12 years prior to that, and she lived 12 years with one lung, done really good. But when the hospital called and told us to come back as soon as possible, man, I knew she was gone. I knew she was gone before she ever went into surgery. I had wrote a 3-page letter, 4-page, saying, telling her everything that I could ever think of that I would need to tell her. I also sat and talked to her and told her most of it. So when she passed, the moment she passed, man, I was the hospital dude. Had not a lick. I didn't have any strength in my body. It all left. My legs crumbled right beneath me. It felt like if you've ever watched any kind of movie with an exorcism and that demon coming out of somebody's body, that was me on the floor.
Totally
Yeah,
understandable.
yeah, because that was my best friend. I was real tight with my mom. I hung with my mama all the time. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, my brother not so much. He always wanted to stay home or stay home and play with his buddies. I always wanted to go hang out with mom.
I just had Snoopy Badass on, and he also lost his mother. And one thing I asked him to do was to give us his favorite memory that he had with his mom to keep her memory alive. So I want to ask you the same thing. What was the best memory that you had with your mother?
The best memory I had with my mother was the hard time. Like it was a hard time, like us heating the house with a stove or something like that. The harder times were the good times. Basically spending the last, we'll say, 4 to 5 years of her life traveling with her to wherever she wanted to travel to. There's really nothing that sticks out in particular. It was just the overall me and her being together a lot. You know what I mean? It just meant so much to me. Every year she made sure we went on a good vacation. Those memories stick out a lot. You know what I mean? Like I said, I didn't really come from. I'm When everybody thinks of West Virginia, they think of these people sitting up here with no shoes and a big old piece of straw hanging out of their mouth and this and that, and it's nothing like that. There are places kind of like that, but it's not like that.
Like Canada with the igloos.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, you guys have your same. Yeah. So I get the dynamic. Yeah, but yeah, man, it was just always most of the time it was the hard times, man. You know what I mean? I can remember me and her. One of my favorite things. There was this show on. It was a Jim Henson show. It was called Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, right? If nobody's ever seen that, you gotta go watch it. Every year it'd come on HBO, bro, and we would sit and watch it when it first come on, man. And I loved that. And I remember one year it was one of those times when we were heating the kitchen with or heating the house with stove. So generally, the good times come out of the rough times with us.
That's right. And the strengthening of that family bond too.
Yeah.
Brings everybody so much closer because you realize like we got each other's back in this moment. It just it's that glue that brings the family together. Did you ever fall into like alcoholism or addictions or anything like that from the trauma, do you think, that you had growing up?
Not throughout the week or nothing, but the weekend, after the high school football games, we drink a little bit and smoke some weed. Generally smoked weed a little bit every day. I don't blame it on this, but I didn't really become an addict, a full-blown addict, till I was 24 or so. I think a lot of that come from my brother passed when I was 17 and he was 20. My brother unalived himself. He with a 12 gauge. It happened right in front of me. I don't know how to explain I can't say it was hard to watch. I can't say anything it was to watch. It was something you could never imagine. The graphics to it, I can't say on here, but
yeah,
it's something you could never understand unless you was there. The smell, the bodily fluids, the igniter for the buckshot, everything, man. All that stuff is it sticks in your head like it's just crazy. You know what I mean? I will say this: he had one eyeball that was still somewhat in his head, or one of them that was hanging down on his cheek, and his head was like it looked like somebody had cut it off at a downward angle. It was weird.
can you take us through that day? What happened that day?
Yeah, him and his girlfriend had been arguing a lot. I was sitting around the house just doing nothing. He had a Mazda B 2300 lowrider, right? I've always been into lowriders, mini trucks. He at the very first of the morning, he woke up and asked to use my truck, and I had never let him use my truck before, ever. I'd never let him drive it, nothing, right? Because I had like wire wheels on it, and I didn't want. I was always scared he would scratch them up or something, right? But anyway, for some reason I let him borrow it that day. But he come home, and I know where he went now. He went to his girlfriend's house. Well, he come home that day. He had paced a lot. He went in the bedroom. He was on the phone a lot, and then there was a lot of that, right? And he'd go outside for a few minutes and sat a while. And then I don't know if it was necessary. It didn't stick out to me that day. Looking back, it sticks out to me. But that day, it was just Jeff's doing whatever Jeff's doing. He had become enthralled in the substance abuse. So it was hard to tell what Jeff was doing that day. I remember about 30 minutes before he walked out the door, he was sitting at the kitchen table, and he was in there, and I thought he was in there scribbling, drawing, because he had the phone beside him like he was waiting on a phone call or something, right? I seen him rip a page out, and he stuck it in his pocket, and then then the phone rang, and he answered. He went in the bedroom and talked, and I could hear him get a little loud or whatever, but he had I guess he was trying to act as normal as possible. He went and opened the closet door to where we kept the hunting equipment. He pulled out something to go hunting with. He said, "Well, I'm gonna go squirrel hunting," and I was like, "Okay, it's not even." I didn't even think about it, but people up here just do that. I don't know. I don't even know why you would hunt a squirrel. You know what I mean? Never made no sense to me. He handed me everything out of his pockets, like there's a few bucks and some change and a couple of just whatnots, and he said, "Here, man, you might need some of this stuff later on today." And I thought he was talking about like, well, here's a few bucks for the gas around out of your truck. Back then, gas was 99 cents a gallon. You know what I mean? So about a minute and a half or so into this, after he walked out the door, I started thinking to myself, something's not right, man. He's getting ready to go take someone else's life. I I run, trot, whatever, waddle, whatever you want to call it, my way around the fence of this place. Because where we lived at, there was a set of apartments, but there was a big, huge privacy fence in between them, right? And he hung out with all the bad kids over at those apartments. I knew one specific chick's house he had been hanging out lately, right? Her car was gone, so I knew he wasn't there. But I walked around towards the back of the building, maybe thinking that he had entered from the back and went inside. So I was gonna go back there and not. But when I got around to the back of the building to where you could see stuff, all these like low income housing apartments there, they had these little utility sheds in the back. The door was open on this one. Well, as soon as I rounded the corner where the door was open, which was open about this far, and I looked in and our eyes met. As soon as they met, that was it. I don't know if I don't know if his finger was in motion at the time of the or what. I don't know if it was a panic thing. I don't know if I may have caused it. I don't know if I may have. I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing with someone unaliving themselves. It leaves so many questions, that can never be answered. So
Yeah.
yeah, but that's what probably that I'm not blaming it for it, because I lived a good 7 years without touching anything, man. And then one day, man, I just picked up drugs out of nowhere, bro. I've been analyzed by you wouldn't know how many psychotherapists, whatever, even directly after it happened and this and that. They've had me on Xanax since I was 17 years old, man. And I didn't even need them. Didn't even take them most of the time.
One thing I just want to say is that you're completely right that by somebody doing that, it leaves so many unanswered questions. But just from like the stories I've heard you talk about your brother before, and because this is not like it's our first time ever talking or anything,
Yeah.
It wasn't your fault.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
I don't think it was, but I always wonder if maybe if me surprising him may have had like a muscle impact or something. That's I don't know. That's a weird thing. As far as mentally, I know it's not my fault, but I just sometimes I wish I would have never followed it. Well, actually, every day I wish I'd have never followed it because I would have never had to see that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I ended up
Yeah.
getting to clean them afterward, the mess up afterwards, and everything else. So
Oh, wow.
there was no one else to do it.
Holy cow. That right there is enough to mess with the strongest of minds, the strongest of people's minds. That's enough to break somebody. So
Yeah, I never got a chance to grieve. I had to make sure my mom was all right.
and how did she react to that? Like obviously traumatically, like any parent would, but did she go into like an immediate depression? Like how did she react to that?
From the start, when she was very first told, she felt like she got stiff as a board and fell straight back on concrete. She said she hated everybody, didn't want to look at another human being. This was the first year and a half after this happened. Finally, I moved away when I was about 6 months, well, a couple months after my 18th birthday, and she couldn't stand not living around me. So I had moved to North Carolina, and she I was gone a few months, and she come right behind me. She couldn't take not living away from me, especially after losing him. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
was the only one she had left, and besides my stepdad, but it's a different thing, but as far as her children go. But like I said, I never got a chance to grieve, bro, because it was me taking care of her, making sure she was straight, for the first year and a half or so afterwards. And then I finally got to go out and, because I didn't even finish high school because of this. And I was very close. Because of this, I missed out on a couple good years of my life, right? I ended up meeting a girl and we ended up getting married way too young, and I had lost a bunch of weight, bro. I was probably in the best shape of my life. I had gotten cut. I had gotten everything, and as this happened, my wife was getting more out of shape. When I met her, I weighed 410 pounds, and then when I left, she weighed 115 pounds when I met. So that was like a 300 pound weight difference between us, right?
Yeah.
Which is a tall guy anyway. But as I was losing this weight, she was gaining it, man. And things, and I wasn't ready for the settling down thing anyway. So we got a divorce, and then at the same time, I got somebody pregnant, and then now my daughter's in Wake Forest University, so that's a good thing.
That is, man. Congratulations on the daughter.
Yeah.
How
Thank you,
old is
man.
she?
She's 19.
19. What? Yeah, my oldest turned 19 in September.
Yeah,
And
mine was in
19
July.
is nice, nice. 19 is the legal drinking age in Canada. So
Oh, okay.
she's hitting the bars, coming home lit,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She still had a couple more years before she can actually hit the bars, but I'm sure she's doing her thing. I told her, just please don't, whatever you do, don't mess with the crazy stuff. She knows what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. That's
Yeah.
why I never allowed her to come here and live with me, man, because it would have ruined her life. It wouldn't have made it any better. Because this my addiction went on for 12 to 13 years, and I'm still a slave to the pharmaceutical industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of addicts, a lot of us are, and we probably will be in some
Yeah,
form stuck to that. It saves our lives. It saved my life. I know it did when
yeah.
I got sober.
It took me losing my home that was left to me, a very nice house, and living on the streets under bridges and stuff like that to finally one day wake up and say, man, I'm tired of being sick.
It sounds like you put your mental health on the back burner in order to take care of the people around you. Like first, with your mother, with that, then being a father is continuously it's a mental challenge no matter what. But with a daughter,
Yeah,
it's quite the challenge for us guys.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
now with your father too, do you ever just have to take a break to yourself and just be like, I just need 10 for Weavy?
Yeah, I do that when I disappear off of YouTube for a couple of weeks. That's usually what I'm doing, man. Because sometimes this world of YouTube it gets really crazy. Just with everything else in my life, not because this takes up a lot of my time, right? It does. It has to because of what I'm doing. But yeah, I do have. I don't take 10, 15 minutes. I take 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
I'll see y'all when I get back.
No, that's good. That's good,
Yeah,
man. Because some people don't take enough time to themselves. Like just for us, for instance, me and Mark were putting out like new videos sometimes twice a week, and there's a lot of editing that goes into it. Like it's so
Mhm.
time consuming. Then we took like maybe a month and a half break over the summer, and it was so needed because I was just getting into that burnout and just
Yeah,
needing some time to be with the family and just be in nature and just get away from it all again. And it was
right.
such a refresher, like a recharge.
Well, see, where my fiance she passed away 2 years ago, right? And uh, I had been in this solid state of depression for those 2 years, man. And this summer, like I said, she passed away in September, but this summer, we were almost into the 2 year mark. I said, I'm not doing this again this year. I'm gonna get out and live and have fun, bro. And I filled my whole summer, man, with nothing but activities and vacation, stuff like that, bro. I had to, man. I can't, I decided if I keep living like this, man, I'm just going to really just die with grief.
Yeah, man. You got to have that bounce back tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I'm on it right now. Solid, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How did your fiance die?
Well, everyone would think that shit would have been an overdose, right? You know, she had done prison time. She had done everything. Beautiful girl. You definitely wouldn't look at her and think she'd ever been to prison. She had a hole in her heart, a tiny hole in her heart from the time she was little, right? Look, so since the time she was born. I hadn't seen her Thursday. I seen her Friday. We were at the doctor on a Friday. And, you know, she kissed me and hugged me and told me the normal things she would tell me. And she left. So Saturday, early Saturday morning, probably 5 or 6 in the morning, we were talking on Messenger. She didn't hit me back after I'd asked her a question, you know, a fairly important question. It was about one of her kids. And you know, and then like an hour later, somebody messages me from her messenger and said, "Hey, this is such and such. Call me now." And I called, and they said, "You know, she's gone." I'm like, what? You know, it was weird. She's only 35.
You've suffered too much close loss than more than anybody should. Like last year, I had 8 friends die. I had 3 this year, but they were acquaintances, people I actually pushed myself away from to get out of that type of lifestyle. You were surrounded by people you loved, and you lost these people.
Yeah.
How did you cope with that? How are you coping with that?
Man, I'm
Is
gonna
it
be honest. To be honest with you, brother, I don't know what my coping mechanism is. I've never figured it out.
strength?
It has to be strength, man. I think it all started basically, you know, with my brother's passing and me having to really look after my mother you know, that little bit of time for, well, not a little bit, but, you know, year and a half, 2 years afterwards.
Yeah.
I think that's worse. And I couldn't grieve because I had to take care of her. And so by that time, I was caught up in normal life, regular adult life. I had done entered adult life,
Yeah.
you know. So I didn't get time to grieve, man. All that stuff really hit me 30, and I had a really bad, like, just breakdown of just like pain hit me, man.